No meat, no dairy, no oil? Dreena's Kind Kitchen knows how. Dreena Burton's new cookbook will make you a super vegan. Next on the PETA Podcast. Welcome to the PETA Podcast. I'm Emil Guillermo, your host for this inside look at animal rights, brought to you by PETA, the largest animal rights organization in the world. On today's episode, going vegetarian is tough, vegan is better. Well, what's better than that? Well, how about no meat, no dairy, no oil? No oil? Not motor oil, things like olive oil. Not even olive oil? Oil impacts the endothelial lining of your heart's blood vessels, increasing the risk of heart disease. Drop the oil, pick up your energy and health. But how do you make food that tastes good? Leave that to Dreena Burton, author of Dreena's Kitchen. Burton has been writing whole food, plant-based vegan cookbooks for more than 20 years, and her recipes are really the thing that seals the deal in the medical nutrition books of Dr. Neil Barnard, like his book on reversing diabetes. I've tried a number of Burton's recipes in the past, and if you're still not sure of going vegan or going oil-free, Burton explains why it will make a difference in your life. Here's my conversation with Dreena Burton, author of Dreena's Kind Kitchen. We begin with me looking for my favorite Burton recipes somewhere here. Okay, here it is.
I'm so glad you made something already.
No, this is made some. This is from the old book.
Oh, the diabetes cookbook, right?
Yeah. Because I've had Neil on my show, and he's always said, "Oh, you ought to talk to Dreena Burton." I said, "Well, we talk about issues. We don't talk about recipes." And he disabused me of that when I took my first taste of the Greek lentil and white bean soup with olive and tomato gremolata.
I love that one too.
That is such a good. Look, soups that make a meal. I'm a meal. That's why I love your approach to vegan dining or vegan food preparation or vegan cooking, because it's really a one-stop meal. Soups, salads, it's all there. And your book has really been, it's been a blessing for me. We're no oil vegans. My wife started cooking this way, maybe in earnest we've been doing it 3 years, but in earnest over the last year and a half. And it has made a difference in our health, our lives. Mm-hmm. And it's Neil, right? Neil's book, but it's your recipes. If you can imagine this, and people listening might be able to imagine me 30 pounds heavier. I sound like this. Now I'm 30 pounds lighter and sound like this. So
you did lose 30 pounds. Well done.
I lost 30 pounds on just being totally no fat vegan versus Oreo vegan, right? Eat anything I want, whenever I want, as much as I want. Potato chips. Oh, vegan. Yeah. But, I didn't put two and two together that you can be on a destructive path if you don't cut out the oil. And my family has a history of heart disease. And so what are you going to do? Right. You have to take the step to try to approach no oil. But for some people, it's so hard.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because I think, there's often that sort of journey, right? We meet the vegan diet and we're so excited that we have all these vegan options and we have so many now. But at some point for most of us, well, for all of us, at some point in our lives, we can't eat the way we did when we were teenagers or in our 20s. Your body starts to change and you need to nourish it much more completely. Not that teenagers don't need nourishment, but I think, the human body is able to withstand a lot more in your teenage years, obviously, and early years. So, I think most of us come to this point where we need to make the diet much more nourishing now. right? Then we're also a much more beautiful example to everybody else for what this diet is, helping to lead other people adopt healthier habits that are then also obviously more compassionate as well.
Look, no one's trying to body shame or fat shame, but if you can be an example of what a vegan, no oil diet can do, that's like the best. You're like a walking advertisement, for a lifestyle change that can really make a difference. And I don't think I understood that. I mean, my wife has been part of PETA since 1989, and I sort of reluctantly became vegetarian because of her, but never really, I was a vegetarian because of, heart disease in my family. Okay, it makes sense. I'm a self-serving vegetarian. And that meant I ate a lot of everything vegetarian. And I didn't really pay attention to what my body was telling me to do until, the no oil diet. And like I said, I was maybe more like I almost got to 180 pounds, which for me is too much. And now I've lost more than 35 pounds, kept it off comfortably, no hunger pangs, better health, better, blood work, good, everything good. And I look at my friends who are my same age, and I just, it's embarrassing for them, because what is it that keeps them from being healthier except a kind of they want to hang on. They can't, they can't help it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's mostly habits, I find. And it's not just like you say, it's not even just body size, it's your vitality, right? The energy that you have and what you can sort of like do with your day. It's not, I always think it's not how long we live, but how much life we have in those years, of course, right? And food is a habit, right? From early age, we develop food habits from our parents and from society. And so that reluctance to change, I think, is very much rooted in those habits that are, change is hard.
And we even see it to this day with things like, in terms of public health, because diet should be a form of public health, especially when you get into the area of, okay, here are food stamps for people who need help, who need assistance. I was glad to see that they're trying to give people bonus monies, bonus credits if they eat healthy, if they add more vegetables.
Yeah, right. Because, and for a lot of people, shifting to eating vegan and plant-based isn't so much about how do you cook tofu or, what's your meat replacement, but just learning how to cook vegetables and learning how to cook, period. Because so many of us have gone through these decades of using convenience foods and not even knowing how to, for instance, cook rice or bake a potato. And, I hope to offer that to people too, in my recipes and my work, to encourage them to, just kind of step back in the kitchen and feel confident to, get cooking, and with simple things. It doesn't have to be elaborate.
Yeah. You're right, though. It is a skill, and either you do it jointly with your partner or you do it individually if you're single, but it's a skill to learn how to prepare, how to do it all, how to batch it so that it's not it's not some chore, but it's an essential chore, because you got to eat every day. But, like you had to batch all the things so you cook once and then prepare. I mean, there's so many different techniques that you can learn, but you have to be committed to doing it. And if they start seeing results like weight loss, improved vitality, improved health, that's a motivating factor.
Totally. It's so rewarding, right? Then you want to do it more. It takes that. It's like any type of change where you step into it in the first week or so. Those first few days are really hard, but then you start to feel how it's giving back to you. And then you want to keep going with it. But there is a bit of a grit, right, that you develop in eating plant-based or vegan, that you make that commitment.
And sometimes it happens because something happens to you. Sometimes it's your circumstance. Sometimes it's, like in my case, I met someone, she was vegetarian, And if we were to be a partnership, we would have to be vegetarian. I mean, it can happen. You can have meat eaters with vegetarians and vegans with non-vegans, but it's a lot more fun if you see the other perspective and adopt that perspective.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's quite a challenge for people to be on different sides. And I agree. I have talked to a lot of people that do it, but certainly a happier place, I think, when you can do it together.
Yeah. And yet that also is the reason why some people may not want to do it, because it is when you turn on the TV and you see all those burger commercials, you see all the restaurant commercials, you go to someplace and you can't find something to eat or someplace that does your diet. It makes it really like, it gives you the motivation to give up rather than to keep going on. And I want to go to your book, this new book, because, here's an excerpt from the new book. And it goes, this was the early 90s when the word vegan was either unknown or seemed radical, even irresponsible. Do you remember writing this, Dreena? This.
It's true.
When I read this excerpt, I said, this is my life. Let me go on. At the supermarket, there are no vegan cheeses, no dairy-free ice creams, no plant-based meats. Now we have plant-based meats that the plant-based can argue and debate about, which is better.
Yes.
I mean, that's the difference. Back to the book. I learned to cook with grains and beans, vegetables and greens, nuts and seeds. I learned how fantastic food could taste utilizing the freshest ingredients. And I discovered new flavors and cuisines through spices and fresh herbs. A whole new world of food opened up. I also found it more enjoyable to prepare meals. Plant foods are abundantly beautiful in color, and there's a freedom to cooking and baking without animal products. No worries of cross-contamination, no greasy pots to scour. Not long after having our second child, I happened upon the China Study by T. Colin Campbell and Thomas Campbell. It spoke to something deep within me. I know for certain I was right about my decision. Now, Dreena, I read that what you wrote in the new book, and I said, I am on the same journey as this woman.
I love it.
I am on your journey. I remember being in Washington, D.C. in 1989 thinking, where's any of this food that's going to make me want to be vegan? Do I have to eat these Loma Linda Frankfurters out of the can? Is that it? And my cat, you can hear my cat meowing maybe, she was saying, yeah, we're not going vegan. She's a carnivore. She's a carnivore. But the turning point for me was during the pandemic, really. I mean, to really solidify, I discovered the China Study. Well, I discovered the China Study years before when it came out, but I enrolled in T. Colin Campbell's class, and now I'm whole food plant-based certified. Wow. And I went through the course, and it helped me become I didn't know I could, but it did help me become a better vegan. And your books and going no oil, I am close to being the best vegan that I can be. So I want to thank you, personal testimony, unsolicited testimonial. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Gosh. I mean, it was really the day. Like, I love that you have that same memory and connection of those years, because it was a very lonely time as a vegan. Yeah. And we wondered if things would ever start to, become aware in the world. Would they start to realize what we've been knowing for all these years? And that time is here. It's still a long ways away, but we are reaching people, right? And the diet is growing in big ways. But yeah, coming back to the whole foods is so important. We can have some treats here and there, but those whole foods are the foundation of the diet.
Yeah. And then you talk about preparing and cooking. it's not really that bad a leap, but if you've been reluctant to buy a pressure cooker or reluctant to buy a better blender, or now you see, oh, if I have the tools, all this could be so much easier, right?
It's a lot easier I use my blender every day, sometimes 2-3 times a day especially for making salad dressings, which I love to make salad dressings and sauces. And so, something like that is an investment that will serve you for years and years. And, having an Instant Pot and food processor, those are my 3 main, appliances. I use them all the time.
Don't remember the fourth, or don't forget the fourth, Dreena. Aren't you an air fryer fan yet?
Well, you know what? I don't use it so much because my family eats so much that I have to work in batches of about 6 or 7 times. And I'm like, this air fryer is too small for my family. But it is a fun gadget for sure.
Yeah. I mean, you named the sort of the basic gadgets. You need a really good blender. You need for me, it's the air fryer. The Instapot for sure replaces the pressure cooker. I mean, we barely use our oven except maybe the stovetop. Although we do. Look, we bake stuff. You got to bake stuff.
I use my toaster oven quite a lot because I have a larger convection one, and I find that is amazing to help for, smaller reheats, which I do a lot of using leftovers in different ways. And I talk about that in the book too, to help people see that leftover doesn't have to sit in the fridge and be the exact same meal. Here's how you can repurpose it and do something different. So I use my toaster oven a lot. I think it's an amazing appliance to have.
I was going to mention the toaster oven, but I didn't want to seem too Neanderthal. But but yes, you need the toaster oven to get your Ezekiel bread toasted, and to get and to also toast everything else you need, and also to cook sweet potatoes in the toaster oven.
Those are best when baked. I do them in the Instant Pot in the hot days of summer, but when you roast them in the oven, they become something completely different, right? They're so special. The sugar is caramelized and they just have a beautiful taste.
We've discovered the purple sweet potato, which, I'm Filipino, so we have a special affinity to purple yams or purple sweet potatoes. So I know that most of the purple sweet potatoes here are they're domestic, but it's great. All the sweet potatoes.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I have an ice cream I call Maui Gelato in the book that uses purple sweet potatoes. We had a trip to Hawaii just again before everything happened with the pandemic, and there was this Maui or place, a gelato place in Maui that did vegan purple sweet potato gelato, and I was like, this is amazing. I have to do something like this. So I made a chocolate version with it.
Yeah, the Filipino word for purple sweet potato is ube, UBE. So it's ube ice cream. If you Google ube, you'll see, it has a legion of purple yam fans, that is sort of the English translation. Anyway, all this food from first course to dessert, it's all done. You got the right tools, you get the right approach to food, and now people have the right book.
Oh, that's so lovely. My gosh. Thank you.
Well, look, there are other books out there, and we have a collection of, a dozen or so books out there. I love Dr. Greger's books, his How Not to Die and How Not to Diet. Mm-hmm. But in terms of, I don't think they're all no oil necessarily, like yours are no oil.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I would think his are, but I'm not sure about the recipes. But yeah, I've been developing no oil for, I guess, about my last cookbook, Flat Park Families, was also no oil. So I kind of made that shift in the last 7 years or so, 7 to 8 years for me. And it made it more fun in a way to create recipes, because I thought, can I make muffins and cakes taste good without oil? Like, how is that possible? Or salad dressing? So it really pushed me to try new things. And I found that I began using vegetables and fruits in ways that I hadn't before. Like I use sweet potato in a dressing, and it creates texture and flavor and adds natural sweetness. So it's kind of like it's not hiding the veggies. It's just using them in ways to give the textures and flavors that you want in a different way.
Yeah. I mean, the amazing thing about, you mentioned sauces and how you do more sauces. I find that that's really kind of the key to making everything taste better. Like your salads or any kind of entree or any kind of appetizer. If you think, oh, what kind of spices can I put in? Yeah. But the sauces, if you know how to make the most delicious sauces, you can make what might sound, vegan, no oil. How can we eat that? Sounds like there'd be no taste. There is an abundance of taste if you have the right instructions and the right directions. You can make the sauces and everything that gives your food the taste that will make everything else in a meat eating diet seem bland, like biting into muscle.
Yeah. I mean, really, that's where the flavor that people think is with meat, that's where it comes from. Nobody eats a boiled chicken breast, right? Yeah. Most people don't find that appetizing. It's coming from the herbs and the seasonings, the sauces, the, condiments, everything that they're putting on it. Make it taste good. So that's the same thing that we do with plant foods. And I agree with you with sauces. They are just like, they can transform anything. And salad dressings aren't just for salad. You can use them on warm grains like heated quinoa, or use them in bean salads, drizzle them on baked potatoes and sweet potatoes. And there's so many things, burritos, there's like lots of things. Drizzle yeah.
I mean, it was an eye opener when I saw people use hummus as salad dressing. And I said, why? Yeah, why not? What has prevented me from ever using hummus as salad dressing? So, all right, but here's the basic question when you say no oil. And I get this from people who say, but I love my olive oil, even olive oil. Yeah, I'm sorry. You have, you got to think of the linings of the veins and all the pathways to your heart and the endothelial cells and all that. You got to get rid of the oil. What do you say to people when they say, I can't give up my oil, I can't give up my olive oil?
I think it's kind of like when we thought we couldn't give up dairy, or we couldn't give up, a particular meat that we were eating, but especially dairy. That was such a hurdle to no longer eat, right? And I think oil far easier to omit from the diet, than dairy, and cheeses, much, much easier. And really, when you think of olive oil, it's not the oil itself that has so much flavor, and it can have flavor, but what it does is it carries the flavor. So oil gives us like that flavor carrier in the palate, but we can get that with other things. So we can get it from whole food fats like avocado and nuts and seeds. And we use those in certain amounts in the recipes, and it doesn't have to be a lot. It does the same thing. It carries the flavor.
Yeah. And also you get whatever positive value of oil nutritionally you get from the nuts and seeds, versus from the oil, you get it directly from the nuts and seeds versus the processed way. And that's far better for you.
Yes. And you're getting it with all the other components, with the fiber and for protein and lots of, vitamins and minerals that are not in that extracted oil.
So it really is a kind of thing where, all right, you can replace meat. So let's replace oil. You can replace dairy. We could do that. I mean, if you don't have the right machine, you can use an old fashioned nut sack. It's like churning butter, or you're using a butter churn in a way, but it's handmade. You've done it. And there's something satisfying from making your first batch of almond milk using just a nutsack.
Right. I mean, so many things, and even something like oat milk. I mean, if you don't have all the tools that you think you need to make a nut milk or soy milk, then oat milk is an option, and that's pretty easy to make. But lots of things can be done at home. And I think the biggest thing for people, one of the biggest things, at least for me, was salad dressings, because people rely on store-bought quite a lot, and they really don't even taste that great once you've made your own.
Yeah. And then when you look at the ingredients and what's in store-bought, you see how much sugar is there, and you see how much stuff is there. You say, oh my God, how can I have any of this store-bought stuff? You just got to look at the label and see if the first ingredient is sugar, and then, all these other oils, you find that, especially in terms of salad oil, there's better ways to make your salad flavorful and less dry or not dry.
Yes. Yes. I mean, there's so many, flavor combinations as well. Right. And sometimes people think, okay, well, if they're cooking for just themselves, what if I make this batch of salad dressing? It's going to spoil. But a lot of the recipes, most of mine, you can even freeze portions as well and then thaw out. And hummus is another thing, as we were talking about hummus, is one of those things you can freeze in batches, and people don't know that. But when you make hummus at home, which is so much tastier than store-bought, I usually triple or quadruple a batch in my food processor and then portion it out and freeze it, and then take it out, a month later, a couple of weeks later. Super, super handy.
All right. So now, while we're talking about dressings, name your favorite easy dressing that would make someone say, oh, I'm going to try this oil-free thing. I think it's going to work.
Oh.
Name one that just pops with flavor, because you know what I'm talking about.
I know.
When you have a salad dressing that you put on some kale, which has this funny taste, or my favorite is arugula, which has a real peppery taste. What is the salad dressing you use that just pops it even more and makes people say, God, I've never had that flavor experience ever. I'm going to keep doing this.
Oh, that's tricky because I love a lot. But I might say my Buddha dressing, which is in this cookbook. The Buddha dressing is one. I love it. It just has really good that umami quality that we sometimes feel is missing from plant-based foods. And then I have one on my site. It's a maple chipotle chickpea dressing. Love that one. Yeah.
Oh, so maple chipotle chickpea. Maple syrup.
A little bit of maple syrup in there, some chipotle hot sauce, chickpeas for texture, and also tahini in there for texture, and some other seasonings. And then the Buddha dressing is a nutritional yeast-based dressing, which is really tasty with some tamari in there. And again, a little bit of maple syrup for sweetness, some tahini for that richness, and apple cider vinegar, again, has that really good flavor combination.
You need that nutritional yeast. That is another one of those things that people don't know if you're not vegan. But once you know it, it becomes this go-to flavor for just about anything.
Yeah. And, some people really do not like it. And I was one of those people for the first, I think, 10 years eating vegan. I didn't like nutritional yeast. Mm-hmm. And I think it's because I had it in large quantities in a recipe. Like a recipe might have had a half cup of it. And it was just a strange taste to me at first. And then I tried it in something and it was much less, just sort of like a background note in the recipe. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I really like that flavor. And it's one of those things, I think, with eating plant-based that our palate evolves, right? We keep trying new things and our palate starts to enjoy new flavors going along. And that was one for me. So I always encourage people to give it another try and maybe try it in a recipe where it's using just a teaspoon or a tablespoon rather than, say, a half cup and try it in that way.
That's good to know that, my guru of food is saying go slow. She didn't like nutritional yeast at first. So what would you tell the people who are just beginning to think, okay, I'm going to go all the way, no oil, vegan? How would you suggest they start?
Yeah, I mean, that's a big step, but I'd say, first of all, you absolutely can do it. And remind yourself of all the plant-based foods that you're already eating, right? So a lot of us sort of skip over the fact that we're already loving things like bananas, rice, potatoes, green peas, corn, all these foods that we're already eating in our diet. And that all we're doing is expanding that so that it fills up more of our plate, crowding out those other foods. And in time, you'll start to learn more foods, not to put a lot of pressure on taking in all those new foods at once, right? You don't need to start cooking quinoa right away or learning about, all the different types of lentils. Start with the food you already love. So if you already love potatoes, work with recipes that use those as the foundation, and then maybe work with a bean recipe. Maybe you already like chickpeas, start working with those, and then move open that arena of foods just a little bit more time as time goes on. And it really gets easier with time. I always want to share that with people. It's like anything in life. It's a skill, right? Cooking's a skill, diet's a habit. So if you start and you feel a bit overwhelmed, step back, simplify it in terms of what you're cooking. It doesn't always have to be a recipe. Remember that it's just basics. Stick with the basics and know that it just gets easier with time. It's like how you get dressed so quickly in the morning. When you were a little kid, that was a big job to get dressed by yourself, right? So in time, it just becomes a skill that's so quick. You can almost, I can cook quinoa blindfolded. Not really, but it's that I cook it that often that it's just that quick, right? So it's easier and it becomes more efficient and you enjoy it more and more.
Yeah. And what should be the goal? Should the goal be eliminating oil, going plant-based, losing weight, health? How would you prioritize it to keep people motivated? What has been your experience?
Oh, I think that really varies by person. I think when someone's coming to this diet for ethical reasons, they're not concerned about, the oil, for instance. But I think in time that if they're eating a diet that's not very nutrient abundant, they're not feeling good. And then that needs to shift and change. So it really depends really on the person. I think though, you totally ignore your own health as much as you have ethics in your heart. If you ignore your health, it's not going to serve you long term. And that's important.
Yeah. And that's really the no oil component. That is a health component more than anything else.
Definitely. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And because you're vegan for ethical reasons, okay, great. No meat, no cruelty. Now don't be cruel to yourself. No oil. That's where the no oil part gets in. Now the health is expanded to your health. And then I guess weight loss takes care of itself, because if you're eating vegan, no oil, you can eat as much as you want and not worry about weight.
I think for a lot of people, I'm not, there might be some situations where there's exceptions, but I think for the most part, it does take care of itself for most people. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, it's that kindness that's really, when I wrote this book and we came up the name with Dreena's Kind Kitchen, it just really fit with where I am right now. And, helping share this message in a way that's compassionate to people, meeting you where you are and helping you move on that journey. But like you say, you have to be kind to your own health too.
If there's going to be a struggle and people hit a bump, what do you think? What is it usually for people who pick up your book and say, I tried it, but we didn't go forward?
It happens, right? I think sometimes it's because the change might be too big all at once. And so see where you are, and maybe it doesn't become making a recipe. It perhaps becomes cooking some basics and making a dish out of that. Like I always say, as much as I love to develop recipes, a lot of our meals are pulling together things that I've batch cooked. I've got sweet potatoes in the fridge. I've got some quinoa or rice. And so I'm going to pull together a bowl with those elements and put a sauce on it, or, stir fry those elements together. And so it doesn't have to be a picture perfect recipe, just the elements, the basics.
What I find when I discovered you in the Neil Barnard's cookbook for reversing diabetes, and Neil's the one who said, you got to talk to Dreena Burton. She's got the best recipes. And so we tried, like I said earlier, the Greek lentil and white bean soup with olive and tomato gremolata. And oh my God, it was so good. A kind of thing you'd serve not just for yourself, but to guests. Mm-hmm. And when you put these things together, you're dealing with things, like lentils, white bean soup, and then you add the special ingredient, right? The flavor, right? When you put these things together.
It's all about those flavors, but a soup like that is, I mean, I feel like soups are undervalued. We see them as, sort of like a side thing. Whereas for me, soups are meals. I put them in the main courses section because they really are meals. And they're one of my favorite. The weather cooled down here yesterday, and I was really happy to make a big pot of soup for supper because it's family pleasing too.
Yeah. So let me just go over some of my favorite Dreena Burton recipes that I've tried, because I haven't tried the new one yet, but it's almost like putting together a sonnet, right? Shakespeare, 14 lines, iambic pentameter, A, B, A, B, C, B, C, D, rhyming couplet, that's what a recipe is. And so you put together these recipes like kale, smashed white beans, really good for guests, because they don't know what to expect. And there it is. It's totally vegan. You've got red wine vinegar and tahini, and, you got all these mixtures of herbs, but it's delicious. It's essentially a dip, right?
Yes. I mean, it could be. Absolutely. Yeah.
A dip or a spread. Anyway, kale, smashed white beans. I've got a special, this is great. And then you've got things like blueberry cornmeal muffins. And I think people are surprised. I mean, you can make all this stuff without eggs or without being totally vegan. I said, yeah, you don't need milk and eggs.
No, I found baking easier in ways. I mean, yes, I've had my flops, but I remember baking with eggs and separating the yolks and the whites. It was so finicky. It really was like laborious in that way, much like how I mentioned cooking with animal flesh and, all of those concerns about contamination and the scrubbing of the pots. It was like, yes, this is much easier to bake and cook. There's not always the need to replace an egg. It's just adding a little bit of leavening sometimes to the recipe, or some binding, which comes through the flours, and sometimes, other purees like a free banana or, yogurts, plant-based yogurts, lots of options.
See, that's the key for you. Going vegan, no oil was a liberation. You didn't have to separate the yolks.
No,
that's a drag. Separating yolks is not.
It was a pain, and it just makes it's an easier, and you can eat the batter. You can always eat the batter.
Of course. So the new book, I'm eager to try recipes from the new book, because it, according to your path, use the foods that and you've got a Beyond Beet burger, which, I mean, because a lot of people they'll take the lazy way out. Okay, I'm going to try veganism. I'm going to buy the Beyond or the Impossible burger, and we'll eat these for 10 days straight. But that's not the key, because we all know that the Impossible and the Beyond, as good as they are as meat replacements, they do not replace the fat from meat.
No, and they're the kind of thing like when my teenager goes out with her friends and they want to go get some food out, and I'm thankful that she has that option, right? I'm thankful she can go to one of the fast food chains with her friends and actually have that normalcy and have something with them. But in terms of day-to-day food, you're not going to feel great eating that way. Yeah.
And I had even one of the old standbys, the chick patties from Morningstar Farms, which, finally went vegan, took the egg white out. I don't know why they stuck it in there for so long. And then I looked at it. Oh my God, there's like 10 grams of fat in there. That's like more fat than I have in a week usually.
And a lot of other ingredients, right?
Yeah. And so I'm just saying, I can't eat these now, but you make a Beyond Beet burger, no oil.
Yes, no oil. It has some whole foods fats with nuts, but no oil. And you can pan fry them without oil. You just need a good nonstick pan, but you can also oven bake them too.
And air fry them.
I forgot.
Air frying is pretty good. All right. So then just a couple more recipes, because, the thing about a recipe book, you're not trying to proselytize with your words or just your words. Well, not that you want to proselytize, but you're actually also trying to can make your point with the food, the best tasting food. Now, you don't get to come into the home and make it for us. So it's still a bit of a challenge. But now name your favorite 3 recipes here that if you're going to try, I offered up the beet burger, the Beyond Beet burger, but give me the 3 that you'd say, try these. You got to try these before you give up.
Okay. I'm going to say my curried carrot lentil soup, because it's one, extremely easy, and it has lots of flavor. And it can be like any night of the week kind of soup. With lots of flavor, so easy.
Wait, the carrot curry
lentil soup.
Wow. So you get the beanie sense of the lentils.
Yes.
You get the flavor of the curry.
Yeah.
And you get the carrot. There's carrot in there.
A lot of carrot in there, and you wouldn't know. So it's another one of those recipes where I put the ingredient in and people don't know it's there. It's not hiding it, but it adds this beautiful color through the soup that you wouldn't get if you didn't have the carrot. It makes the soup so vibrant in color.
And it makes it not the carrot orange, but a mixture of the carrot orange and the curry yellowish. And it's unique. And do you have any turmeric in it?
I think there's turmeric in it. Yes, I think. Well, there's turmeric in the curry powder. So yeah. I keep that one real simple. Sometimes when I do curry dishes, I use the specific spices that go into a curry, but here I make it simple for people with curry powder. And then there's zucchini fritters.
Every zucchini is plentiful and abundant. You want to know what to do with your zucchini. You don't have to make potato chips. You can make fritters. Now, how is your fritter? Your fritter is like a thick thing or what?
No, they're fairly, so it uses chickpea flour and grated zucchini. And I really I make these a lot in the summer, and my family just devours them. I usually do a triple batch, but they're so light when you eat them that you could fill up on them. Of course, they're enough. You could eat lots of them and fill up, but they have a really light, delicious texture. And they're so good with a dip or a sauce, which I have many of those in the book too.
Now, do you make cauliflower wings? Do you have a cauliflower wings recipe? Because it sounds like this fritter could be, it reminds me of the cauliflower wings that we batch up sometimes and then we dip.
I think that, you know what, if you do those in your air fryer, I think they'd be very much like that. You should definitely try that because I do them pan fry, and I think they'd be great. And you could also put some cauliflower in there. I just grate the cauliflower or the zucchini in my food processor. So there's no reason why you couldn't add cauliflower and put that through your food processor too.
This is a creative enterprise. It's not like, fry the steak and make the potatoes and serve it up to the people that won't know anything. They won't know the difference. This is a creative enterprise, this vegan, no oil cooking.
It is. And it's fun. It's, there's always room, especially with savory recipes, to be creative, or not baked recipes, I should say. When it's cooking, stews, entrees, there's so much room for flexibility and to customize things. I always say, make it the first time as is, and then play around with the ingredients as you want to, customize. Baking's a little more finicky and does need to be, So, and then I'll maybe mention, there's a lot of sweets that I could mention, but I have
your favorite one, the one that's going to the to die for dessert.
Now, this one is very indulgent. It's my Nanaimo bars.
Nana. Now, my wife asked me about that last night.
Yeah.
We looked at the picture. Now, Nanaimo, what is that like?
It's a squid that originates from Nanaimo, BC, and they're traditionally made with butter and flour and a lot of sugar. So there's still some sugar in these, of course, but I reduce the amount, and they're nut-free and oil-free and so fun to make. But I gotta mention one more sweet, and it's my apple crisp in the book, which is really homey, comforting, and so good for this time of year when the apple season is coming around, and it's delicious. And usually crisps have a lot of oil in the topping, so this one doesn't.
It's funny. Yes, the other day my wife we had some excess apples. She made an applesauce, but she left it chunky. She didn't sauce them up. So it was like almost like the filling of an apple pie or an apple crisp without all that. It was just the apple. And it was like, this is like a nude apple pie. It's just like the apples without the sauce. And it was delicious. I just ate the whole thing. I felt like a pig. Well, I don't mean to denigrate the pigs. I had more than my share, but it was delicious. And
Right.
you know, and look, but the night, that thing that you did, the Nanaimo, I thought it was something I had up at Tim Hortons up there when I was.
I don't know. Maybe they do carry them there. It's a popular Canadian dessert because it came from this area in BC. And they're very popular around the holidays. And people tend to put, different flavorings in them and that kind of thing. But that recipe's been pretty popular, and it's an impressive recipe for people.
That's what, my wife makes a thing. She makes a designation on your recipes. Good for us, good for guests.
Right.
This is going to wow people. They're going to say, oh, I want that. Is that no, there's no oil. There's no cruelty. They love that stuff.
Right.
And really, I have transformed as a vegan just by taking that T. Colin Campbell class, it took nearly 30 years of marriage. Also, that helped to a vegan. That helped me. But your no oil recipes have really transformed our veganism and our health. I just want to thank you. I think more people need to pay attention to, like when your recipes show up next to Dr. Barnard's texts and all his books. I hear Neil's okay. He's an okay guy. But your recipes, you walk away with something. If people have the courage, not courage, if they just take the time and follow the recipes, they can come away with the life-changing transformation that they're looking for when they pick up Neil's books. You're the closer, I'm telling you, Dreena.
That's so kind. Thank you. Yeah, it really is just making that commitment to ourselves, right? Making the time to choose ourselves and cook that good food for ourselves. And then we'll be so happy we did.
Look, there are times when you're tempted. The break the temptation food. There's a time when you say, I got to have that olive oil, dip that French bread or that, the sourdough into the olive oil, or there's that time I got to taste something what is a great end temptation mic drop food that'll save you for you. Yeah. That does it for you. That says, oh, I want to do this, but I'm going to go make this and I'm going to be happy that I'm vegan and oil free.
Oh, my temptation food is always a sweet. Always. I'm not the greasy. Like my family members love fries, and they're the ones that want to have that temptation. Me, it's always about sweet. So I'm the one that has to look at like those cinnamon rolls or donuts or something and say, okay, but I'll make this instead. So sweets and vegan ice cream, plant-based ice creams, totally my thing.
Yeah, but I have discovered Yonanas, right?
I need one of those. I don't have one of those yet.
It's another tool, but once you have a Yonanas, you say, God, I don't even have to suffer through the plant-based, sugary. It's still kind of sweet. The ice creams, which are great. Look, I love the vegan Cherry Garcia.
Right.
But you can't have too much of that.
Oh, I find now it's just a little bit, like a little taste, a little tiny amount, and I'm happy with the flavor. And that's something important to kind of know as when you begin to like sort of modulate your own like diet, you realize that those first few bites are always the best, right?
Yeah.
So you can fill up on nutritious foods, but when it's something that's more tempting, enjoy maybe those few bites, then be done with it.
Oh, that's good. My way of dealing with it is kind of to be mindful, and so I do a little vegan meditation. Mm-hmm. Only like I just need 30 seconds to catch myself and remind myself that this feeling, this urge will pass.
Right.
And then it does, and then off until the next temptation, and then But vegan, no oil meditation, no oil. Definitely no oil.
That's a good one. You need to share that out with people.
Hey, Dreena Burton, The Kind Kitchen. What is the official title? It's Dreena's Kind Kitchen.
But it can be anyone's kind kitchen, right?
Yeah. And she was kind enough to be on the PETA podcast, the Emil Zoom. Really, thank you. Good luck on the book.
Thank you so much. It was a treat to chat with you today, Emil. Thank you.
Dreena Burton, a no-oil vegan, on her latest book, Dreena's Kind Kitchen, with foreword by John Robbins, available wherever you get your books. And that's our show for today. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to send a link of this show to your friends. Tell them you like the PETA Podcast without oil. And contact us at PETA.org. You can find me on Twitter at Emil Amok, that's EMILAMOK, or see my blog at amok.com, or see my work at ALDEF, the Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund. That's ALDEF, AALDEF.org/blog. Once again, thank you for listening. Check out all our episodes on your favorite podcast app or on Apple Podcasts, where you can subscribe to as well as rate and review the show. It helps get the word out about the issues you care about. Our music is provided by Carbon Works. Check them out on YouTube. And join us again next time for more insight into animal rights and the fight for a cruelty-free world on the PETA Podcast. I'm Emil Guillermo.